Voting began this week for the 2018 Emmy Awards, so what is most likely to get nominated? For the past 17 years, HBO has led the nominations tally, and it looks like this could be the first year that they get unseated by none other than Netflix. With Veep out of the running in the comedy races for the first time in 7 years, and many of the categories having no clear frontrunner, this should be a very interesting Emmy season. As always with television awards shows, there will be many returning nominees. Don't be surprised if Game of Thrones, Stranger Things, The Handmaid's Tale, This Is Us, The Crown, The Americans, and Westworld all appear again in Best Drama Series. The only new shows that might have a chance? Netflix's Ozark starring Jason Bateman and Laura Linney, and BBC America's Killing Eve starring Sandra Oh, but they definitely seem like a long shot. Atlanta, Blackish, Silicon Valley, Will and Grace, and possibly Curb Your Enthusiasm all look good to return to Best Comedy Series. Of the new offerings, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel is sure to be nominated since it's the only show that gives Atlanta any heat. Glow and Barry are lingering on the edges, hoping one of the older shows drops out, which I'm thinking they will. In many of the comedy acting races, you're likely to see many familiar faces. Atlanta's Donald Glover is clearly the comedy actor frontrunner and should be joined again by Anthony Anderson of Blackish, William H. Macy of Shameless, and Larry David of Curb Your Enthusiasm. I'm thinking Bill Hader is sitting pretty to make it for HBO's series about a contract killer turned actor, Barry, and Eric McCormack should be back for the revival of Will and Grace. Zach Galifianakis of Baskets and Ted Danson of The Good Place might end up grabbing 2 of the final slots. This year's Comedy Actress winner will be a fresh face since Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who has won the past 6 in a row, is not in competition. The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel's Rachel Brosnahan is sure to win, with previous nominees in this category Allison Janney, Mom, Tracy Ellis Ross, Blackish, Lily Tomlin, Grace and Frankie, and Deborah Messing, Will and Grace, probably joining her. Alison Brie looks good to crack the list for Glow, and I'm hoping voters don't forget about the brilliant talents of Pamela Adlon in Better Things and Issa Rae in Insecure. The supporting comedy races are where things could get interesting. For the men, Emmy Award winner for this role back during its first run, Sean Hayes of Will and Grace, will duke it out with the unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt's Titus Burgess, who is competing with that show's final season, and Baskets' Louis Anderson, a winner in this category 2 seasons ago. After that, it's anyone's game as there's a lot of new blood. Glow's Mark Maron, Atlanta's Brian Tyree Henry, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel's father, Tony Shalhoub, and Barry's Henry Winkler all have a viable shot at receiving their first nominations for their respective shows. For the ladies, your returners will be SNL's Kate McKinnon, the favorite to win again, Will and Grace's Megan Mullally, and SNL's Leslie Jones. Newcomers hoping to break in are The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel's Alex Borstein, One Day at a Time's Rita Moreno, recent SAG Lifetime Achievement Award winner, Glow's Betty Gilpin, and Atlanta's Zazie Beetz. The big question here is whether or not Laurie Metcalf can survive the tweeting and cancellation fiasco of Roseanne and find herself nominated as a pat on the back for having to go down with the ship. She just won her second Tony in a row, so that could signify that there is goodwill out there for her right now. I mentioned before that the drama series contenders are mostly all previous nominees. The Handmaid's Tale will have Elizabeth Moss, Ann Dowd, and Alexis Bledel nominated again. The Stranger Things phenomenon will continue with nods for Millie Bobby Brown and David Harbour, and also looks to add a new actor from the show to the mix. Noah Schnapp's compelling and emotional performance as Winona Ryder's son could help him join Harbour this time around. Matthew Rhys and Kerry Russell look primed to return for The Americans, a show people say only gets better with every new season. Evan Rachel Wood and Thandie Newton will be back for Westworld. HBO, this time around, is campaigning for Jeffrey Wright and Ed Harris to be in lead in hopes that they'll get nominated this time too. HBO also pushed Game of Thrones' Kit Harington and Emilia Clarke in lead. They've been nominated for those roles before just in supporting. The Lannisters, Lena Headey, Peter Dinklage, and Nikolai Coster-Waldau look good for a nod too, bringing Game of Thrones' possible main acting tally to 5. The only show that could rival it? This Is Us, which has 5 formidable acting players as well. Sterling K. Brown, Milo Ventimiglia, Mandy Moore, Chrissy Metz, and Justin Hartley. If you're wondering about the guest categories, I'll do those in a later video, as well as the television movie and miniseries performance awards. Happy Emmy voting!